everyone, and welcome to today's Free Training Thursday. My name is Kaylee White. I'm a marketing coordinator here at Abacus Next, and today Scott Heist is going to go over how to set up matters in AbacusLaw. So thank you everybody for joining us. We see a lot of familiar faces. Always good to have you here. This will run for about 20 to 30 minutes, and we are open to answering any questions that you may have. So please feel free to submit those in the questions portion of the GoToWebinar control panel. And as always, this session is being recorded, and we will send you via email the recording later on. So without further ado, I'll let Scott take it away. Hi, Scott.
All right. Thanks, Kaylee. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Just real quick before we get into our topic today, just by a show of hands, can everybody just click the little button there, the hand-raising button, to let me know that you can see my screen okay? I just shared out my AbacusLaw program there. If you cannot see it, do not raise your hand. All right. Looks like we are good. Perfect. So like Kaylee said, we're going to be talking about setting up matters in AbacusLaw. Also, just a quick note, hold your questions to the end. We're going to have a few minutes at the end there just to go over those, and utilize the chat box to ask your questions because everybody is muted. That's by design. So just type your questions in there and we'll read them out at the end. Before we get to the questions at the end, we're also going to have just a quick poll just to get an idea of what topics you guys want us to cover in the future. So if you could stick around and take that poll, it's just a really, really short little digital poll there that you can do for us. That would really help us out. So we'll dive into today's topic. That, again, is going to be setting up matters in AbacusLaw. So if you've used any other case management program out there before you came to Abacus, you may have noticed that for law firms and for legal entities, a lot of those case management programs are very name-centric. So, when you get a case, everything really revolves around the name. Abacus is actually the opposite. It's actually very matter-centric, which is really the right way to do it. Because if we think about a case that we create, we have the Smith v. State case, just to, use a fake name there. And John Smith is our client, and the case is, whatever it is, some sort of criminal case, some sort of civil case, whatever it may be. So we actually want to have our matters set up inside of AbacusLaw first so that we can start linking all of the appropriate contacts that are involved in that case to that matter. So that's what I mean by Abacus is very matter-centric. So that's why we kind of developed an intake process that you can also further customize, by the way, and we'll talk a little bit about that today. But we set up an intake process using intake forms. Notice the little button there on the top toolbar that says intake. And this is where you can go in and you can set up your brand new cases when you take them on. So yours may look a little bit different than mine because you may have some specialty versions, but I invite you to take a look at your intake menu, okay, and just, snoop around in these intake forms. And while you're looking at them, and I'll use the client plaintiff intake form here, just for training purposes. But while you're looking at your intake forms, you want to start thinking about how you would tweak these intake forms to make your firm's intake process more specific to your needs, okay? So think about like fields that you would want to have on the intake form. If you always need to have, a field for date of birth or a field for a social security number for your clients that are going to be, that you're representing in the case, that's something that you can customize in the intake form and you can add later on down the road. But the intake process is the most efficient way to set up your new matters in AbacusLaw. And the reason it's efficient is because it covers almost all of your bases for new case creation in one single screen. Okay, that's the important part. We don't want to have to bounce around, to multiple locations inside the program just to get our case created. We want to get our case set up so that we can start calendaring future appointments, so that we can set up a billing schedule as well for those of us who are billing hourly, flat fee, contingency. If you don't have a case created in your system, you can't very well generate invoices and things like that. So we want that process to be as efficient as possible. So looking at this intake form here, I could just go ahead and put in, whatever fake name here I want to put in. We'll just be creative and we'll say it's Kaylee versus Scott, although we know that would never happen. We're very good friends. So, and, the whole process here in the intake form is just fill in the information that you have at the time, okay? If you don't know the court, if you don't know the court case number, maybe it hasn't been created yet, you can just skip that field. You don't need to put information in there. You always want to give it a case name though, okay? That is very important. And there's really no standard for how you name your case. It's kind of up to you. It's your own personal preference. If I'm a family law attorney and maybe this is a new divorce case, maybe I just call it, the Smith divorce or, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be like a, someone v. someone type name. It's always up to you. Make sure you also give it a case type, okay? That's very important too. We want to make sure we're giving proper case types to our names, especially if our firm handles different types of law. Like you'll find a lot of personal injury firms also do workers' comp, right? Family law attorneys are doing divorces, they're doing custody, they're doing adoption, they're doing all kinds of things like that. So if you specify the type of case here in the case type window, that is going to ensure that future reporting is accurate. So if you want to run a report that says, show me all of my divorce cases from 2018, well, if you don't have the divorce code in your matter, then it's not going to be a very accurate report, right? So make sure you're always giving your matters the proper case code or case type, as we call it, okay? Again, court case number, those are things you can fill in if you have it. It's not required. I do always recommend putting in an open date. Again, this is for reporting purposes. Back to that report I was talking about earlier, if I say, show me all my divorce cases for 2018, well, if I'm not putting in an open date here, how's the program going to know, right? So I want to make sure I'm putting in my appropriate dates, okay? You can also assign an attorney if you know who the attorney is going to be. If you don't, that's okay. Or if you just want to assign it to an attorney, you can always edit that later on, okay? These things are not set in stone. Once the case is created and it's in your database, you can go in there and you can change the name, you can change the assigned attorney, the court, all that good stuff, okay? As you're scrolling down through this intake form, you just want to fill in the information that you have at that moment. Now, the different sections in here, okay, defined by this blue text, these are new records that are going to get created. So the first section says, please enter information about the case. That's basic case info. As we scroll down, we get to a section that says, please enter contact information for the client, okay? This is the information that's going to be used to create our name record for our contact, right? So if this is our client, we want to make sure we're putting in the right information here. Okay, I'm not going to fill everything in, but I think you get the idea. Now, if you were to type in a name, this is another good reason for using the intake forms, by the way, is it kind of acts as a duplicate checker. Watch what happens here if I type in a name that's already in my system. It's going to pop up. Actually, oh, it looks like I don't have a John Doe in there, so that's interesting. It's actually, oh, there we go. This name is already listed. Do you want to allow a new client with the same name? So it checks for duplicates based off of the info that you type in. So this is your chance to say, no, this person actually has the same name as one of my previous clients, so I'm just going to say yes here and continue. Or I'm going to say no, okay, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to use an existing name. See that button on the right side, use existing name? And now I can click on that person's name and select them, okay? And that's going to use that other person's name record that's already in my system. Again, Abacus is very matter-centric, not name-centric. So if we've represented Bill Doe on 5 different cases over the life of our firm, we don't need to have 5 different name records for Bill. We need to have 5 different matter records. Bill is only one person, right? So we don't want to duplicate our name records, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and clear that, though. And then I'm going to put in my name, if I can spell it correctly, my own name. There we go. And then, of course, you're going to want to put in address, phone number, email address, all of that good stuff there, too. There also is an area in here for responsible attorney in regards to calendar events. One of the cool things about the intake form is you can actually attach calendar rules to the intake form. So this is basically the attorney that's going to get assigned to the events that get kicked off. So if you have like a new case rule for your calendaring, like maybe you have 10 things that you always do within the first 30 days of a case, right? You run a background or a conflict check on day 1. You send a letter out requesting financials. You send a letter to your client telling them not to talk to anyone. You have all these things that you do over a certain amount of time. Those rules can be applied to the intake form. And when you create the records and close this intake form, it actually calendars all of those events for you as well. So again, that's one of the nice things about the intake form too. So make sure you're putting in the responsible person in the office who's going to be assigned to those events so that they get them on their calendar. And you can do multiple people as well. So if you want to do, maybe I'm the paralegal, so I check my box and then I check my attorney's box. Okay, I can do that there as well. So make sure you're putting in the responsible people there. And then every intake form is a little bit different. It's going to depend on which one you chose to fill in. But this one here also has a section to enter contact information for our opposing party, right? So I would go ahead and put in Kaylee's info, or I can use an existing name if this person is already in my system, like I said before. But at the end, when you click the button on the bottom right that says create records and close, you may be presented with some prompts. Like for instance, this intake form does apply rules, so that's great. I would say yes here to the question of, do I want the related events scheduled? It shows me all of those events right here. So if we look at this, this is kind of nice. I've got a meeting with my client that's being scheduled. I've got, it looks like the opening of a general ledger, a conflict check. I'm opening my case file. I'm drafting some sort of letter. I'm drafting some sort of fee agreement, whatever it may be. So it shows me all of those. I click done and everything disappears. Okay. So now if I look at my matters, there it is. Kaylee v. Scott, civil litigation matter. If I double click on that and open it up, not only do I have my matter record created, but I also have my events created. See all those? What is that, about 7 different events? I didn't have to go to my calendar one time, and all 7 of those events got scheduled automatically for me based off the rule because I used an intake form. And then also, if I go to my linked names tab, here are all the people involved as far as the intake form was concerned. In this case, we've got Kaylee here as the defendant. We've got Scott here as the plaintiff. Scott is also linked as the client. That's just Abacus's way of telling you that if you do both defense and plaintiff work, this just tells you which one it is for your client. And then Scott is also set up automatically as the billing party, so the person who's picking up the bill, okay? So hopefully you found that informative. Please put all your questions in the chat box there. Kaylee's going to read those out, and I believe she's also going to do a quick poll. So if you see that poll come up, go ahead and answer, and I'll turn it over to Kaylee for your questions.
Yeah. So let's get today's first poll going. We want to know which areas of Abacus Law would you like to see more webinars of in the future? Of course, these webinars are for you, so we want your input. So I'll just let you guys go ahead and fill out those. You can do more than just one. Also, our next poll pertains to Abacus Private Cloud. We do mention this often. So if you don't know about Abacus Private Cloud, the Abacus Private Cloud puts all of your business critical applications into one secure environment on your workstation that you can also access from anywhere. So you can work on your tablet, on your phone, your desktop, and it also eliminates any of the need for managing your own IT infrastructure, because we take the responsibility of that for you. So if you'd like to know more a little bit about Abacus Private Cloud, I'm going to launch that poll now. We can contact you and also set up a technical assessment if you would like to know, is that something that your firm could benefit from? I know a significant amount of you are already on it, so good for you, and thank you so much. So I'll just let this run for a couple more seconds. If you've already finished answering and you have a question for us, please submit your question into the questions portion, and I'll read that momentarily. Okay, our first question, I'm going to close that poll. Thank you, everybody, so much for responding. Closing. Okay, so the first one is, why did you check 2 people under responsible attorney? We have a senior and staff attorney plus a paralegal.
So that's a great question. So keep in mind, when you're up in the first portion where you're entering in information about the matter, you're only going to assign a single person. Usually, you'll only assign a single person for the responsible attorney here. What this section, which I believe is what you're referring to, responsible attorney here, this actually is the WHO codes for calendar events. So while, Johnny the attorney may be the attorney who's litigating the case for the firm, we may also want other people in the firm to be involved with the calendar events that are going to be getting automatically scheduled via the intake form. So I may want to have, not just me as the attorney, but also my paralegal, maybe the senior attorney involved in those events as well. So that's what those checkboxes will do. It will assign multiple people to those events that get calendared so that they'll also be on those other people's calendars as well. So hopefully that answered your question. And Kaylee, I will turn it back over to you.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Sorry, technical difficulty there. The same person wants to know, how do we get all 3 in this form? Each has a different responsibility.
So I'm not 100% sure that I understand the question. When you say, I think what you mean is, how do we get them in the list to be selected? If that's the case, then all you need to do whenever you're in this list, if you don't see one of the people in your office, if you don't see them in this list, click add up here in the top right corner, and you can add their WHO code. So you can just put in, their initials, and then, like I would say, let's just do a fake one here, SD, and then maybe it's, Sally Doe. Okay, so that way now they can be selected as a WHO entry for the automatic events that get calendared. I think that's what you're referring to. Please correct me if I'm not understanding that question correctly.
All right. I think we can move on to the next question. To this individual, please, if you still have questions, you can just contact us at webinars@abacusnext.com, and Scott can reply via email and follow up. So if anyone else has any more questions, now's the time. Any other last minute tips and tricks, Scott?
No, I think that's pretty much it for the intake form. One of the things, though, I cannot stress enough is you have to become familiar with the intake forms that you have, okay? You really need to decide, how would I tweak these intake forms to make them more specific to my new case workflow, okay? If, you're in here and you only do, construction law, then you may want to create an intake form that has fields, specific to construction law, right? And the same thing goes for those rules. If you want to, really utilize those new case rules when you use your intake forms, then you've got to become familiar with the rules themselves. So make sure you go into your File, Setup, Rules menu, okay, and take a look at the rules that you have and become familiar with those as well. We'll be doing, some webinars in the future on rules, but if you want to go to our video page on our website, we also have some recordings on there that discuss rules.
Exactly. We also have more webinars this month and every Thursday. So please do sign up for the subsequent ones. Go to abacusnext.com/webinars. That's where you'll see them all. We also have some demos of APC coming up, and if you're interested in any of our other products, you can always browse them there. So thank you everybody for joining. One of our attendees just asked, is there a way to get a repeat of this? I missed the beginning of the webinar. Yes, we will be sending out as soon as we can the recording to your email address that you used to register for this webinar. So just in a matter of a couple of hours, you should be receiving that. And as always, the recordings get published to our blog. So if you feel like it, you can go through the blog, see previous Free Training Thursdays, formerly Free Training Fridays, etc., etc. So thank you so much, Scott. Looking forward to seeing you all again. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.